Benissimo, buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the organizers. This year, again, we were selected as research partners for MIDO, and we are honored to be part of this increasingly rich event. I'm Daniele Novello. I'm responsible for consumer insight and IQ. And Giulia Besana, he's a senior consultant on consumer behavior. Our task today is to tell you about the research study that we designed together with MIDO and that we are going to develop and complete in the following months. So today you will see a preview of this research study, which is very ambitious and has a strategic goal that is to highlight the current situation of the eyewear market, but at the same time we also want to look ahead and see what is going to happen in the following months. To do so, our storytelling is based on 3 chapters. In the first 2 chapters, we will dwell on the macro drivers and macro trends that characterize the eyewear market and that will further determine the potential of this market in the following months and years. In the second chapter, in particular, we are going to dwell on the results of some analyses that we started carrying out based on proprietary data. And through these analyses, we have identified some key trends, some key consumer needs that have been particularly important in these past few years and that will become very significant in the years ahead and that will deeply impact on the eyewear market. Last but not least, in the last chapter, we're going to dwell on the methodology, how we designed this research study that we will further develop in the following months and that will allow us to systematically collect data on final consumers. In our last chapter, we will go into the details of the research design, but just to give you some facts and figures so that you can keep them in mind throughout our presentation. This research study is based on consumers, has a consumer-based approach. We're going to interview consumers in Italy, France, and Germany with a modular approach. We will start off with Italy, and we will apply the same methodology in the other countries as well. But now, Giulia, you have the floor. Let's start with the drivers. Thank you very much, Daniele. Let's start with the identification of the main drivers that are driving the market. These are macro drivers such as consumers, market trends in general. And we have tried to understand how these drivers impact on the European market, although they impact on the worldwide, on the Western market as a whole. The first driver is, of course, aging. The population is increasingly aging, not only from a demographic viewpoint, but also in terms of aging as a whole. By 2050, so in a matter of 25 years, only in Europe, we're going to have 130 million people who are over 65 years of age. So we are going to be confronted with older people, but with a higher longevity. So our population will have a higher age, but will also be healthier. And Daniele will focus on that later on. This trend is intertwined with another trend. That is, although there is some disagreement on that, this second driver involves all generations within the framework of aging. And this second trend is digital life. So what do we mean by that? Well, this is quite obvious. So we are becoming increasingly digital, virtual, and connected. This trend is intertwined with the previous one, because digital lives does not only pertain to younger generations, but also older people over 65 years of age, adults in general. We asked our consumers whether they spent some time in front of a screen yesterday, for example, and as you can see, basically most of them, the great majority of them, said yes, we did. And interestingly, as I said, this does not only pertain to younger generations, but also the baby boomers, those who are aged 60, 65, and 65 plus, as we said earlier. As a whole, we have to do with a higher number of devices and screens. So in front of us, we have larger and larger screens. These are just some examples, but if you think about that, we interact with screens on a daily basis. The screen is our window to the outside world, and we have been using screens and digital devices for an increasing number of activities: online shopping, gaming, and so on and so forth. An interesting trend that we have identified from our proprietary data is that since 2020 to today, we have sold in the countries that you see here in Western Europe up to 450,000 small devices, small screens, and by that we mean tablets, wearables, and smartphones. This number is interesting because it is connected to our following item. We do an increasing number of things on smaller screens, and we not only interact with one another, but also with the brands, with the manufacturers, with the producers. We as consumers interact and look for information through digital devices. And this is closely linked to eye care and eyewear because the info journey in the eyewear market, so the search for information driving the purchasing process, is a path that has become longer and longer. And so it has grown a double digit between 2020 and 2025, both in the world of spectacles and in sunglasses. So how can we connect these two trends? Aging on the one hand and digital lives on the other hand. So how can both trends have an impact on the market in which we operate? And that is represented here at this exhibition. There is an actual impact. The impact is that we spend more and more time in front of the screens. We are aging more and more, and so older people tend to spend more time in front of a screen. And this is something that we can see among the adult population. This slide is about the United States, but we know that the situation is very similar in the Western world too. So up to 70% of adults experience the so-called digital eye strain. So the strain of the eyes due to the interaction with digital devices. Potentially, this leads us to another number that the British Journal of Ophthalmology published too. 30% of the population is myopic as of today. For the future, according to the estimates of the British Journal of Ophthalmology, this number is going to double. So we start with 2.5 billion people, and in the next 25 years, not too many, we will reach 6 billion people suffering from myopia and 580 severe myopia. So far, we've focused on adults. But what about the younger generations, kids, for example? This is something that we're going to discover over time because digital devices have become widespread recently, and kids are spending a lot of time in front of screens and computers, but as of today we do not have numbers about the impact of that on kids yet. But we have some risk estimates, and these risk estimates are deeply connected with the time that kids and young adults are spent in front of a screen. The British Journal of Ophthalmology foresees that there will be an increase up to 21% for kids spending at least 1 hour in front of a screen to develop myopia in adulthood. And this estimate increases abruptly if we spend 4 hours in front of a screen. You may think 4 hours are many, but think about what we have said so far. Consider how many screens we use every day. So 4 hours are not that many. As of today, about 36% of children and teenagers are myopic. We saw the estimates, we saw the numbers, and we know that this number is going to increase inevitably. And so it's a demand that is going to grow over time, and the market player will have to react to that. But we have also interviewed the professionals in the field, and so we asked them about the methods to manage and to treat myopia and vision impairment. So first of all, education is one of the measures that they implement, so tools and so on and so forth are important, but education is really paramount. By education, we do not only mean education for children, but also their parents. So people aged like me and Daniele, people of our generation who must become increasingly aware of their kids' visual health, and they have to implement strategies to protect their kids' eyes. So we have further drivers. Daniele mentioned some macro drivers. Let me hint at a couple of further drivers which are more general and global. As I said, overseas these drivers may have a higher impact, but we can also see them, and they are relevant in the Western world as well. These two drivers are the following. Well, first, greater purchasing power. As we know, the so-called middle class, the bourgeoisie that no longer exists. However, let's say people with medium income is becoming larger and larger, and their wealth has grown consistently over time. What does this mean? This means that these are people who may not be able to buy things at very high prices, but through time they have access to products and services on a continuative basis. And if we consider that cities are becoming larger and larger, rural areas lose their population, and this is what we have seen after in the post-war period, well, this means that there will be more needs concerning the visual health, the customization, the desire of having something new, because the purchasing power has increased. But I do not want to spoil what Daniele is going to tell us. So let's have a look now at the consumer needs. Yes, let's take a step forward. Giulia described some drivers, especially the demographic ones, that have an advantage. They can be foreseen, so we already know what and how they're going to develop, but they also have a disadvantage. So they are quite linear, so they do not grow abruptly. However, in companies, as we know, we are used at working on urgencies, and so urgent things become a priority rather than what is really important. So demography is important, is a priority, and if we see these numbers on the screen, so 6 billion, now 2.5 billion people. When I studied, this number was 1.5, so it's a trend that is growing significantly. So please note that this is important. We have to get ready. We have no excuses, because this is a process that is well known to us today too. But again, let's take a step forward and let's focus on the short term and on the key trend, on the development of consumers' needs. And well, here we have a huge difference compared to the previous drivers. We do not know the way out. We have identified some trends, but they switch on, then they switch off, then they move somewhere else. So they have to be mapped very in detail. And one of the goals of our research study is to identify some of those trends that may have a very deep impact on the eyewear market, and this is going to be the goal of our research study. We want to understand how this is going to impact on our targets, on manufacturing categories. The first trend is health and wellness in a broader sense. So we're not talking about health in terms of absence of a disease. We mean wellness at 360 degrees. Here you see some data from the Global Health Institute. So if we consider wellness as a whole, in 2023, $6,000 billion were for the market. And by wellness, we mean healthy food, spas, so everything which is connected to well-being and wellness. Pharma accounts for less than 1/4 of this category, and this is an area that is going to grow to $9 trillion US dollars by 2028, and well, this is partly due to the demographic development. There is no doubt that older people pay more attention to health, but there is more. On the one hand, older people have a higher purchasing power, so the Italian population aged over 60 have more than 60% of wealth, but there is also something else. Lifestyle is becoming increasingly important. There are some cultural drivers in the background. As we said, undoubtedly, older people tend to focus more on wellness and health. But as you can see here, people below 30 years of age also focus on prevention and have a proactive approach. I remember my second research study at Risco that I made 20 years ago. Well, it was about how to approach health in a more proactive way. And well, one of the reasons for being proactive was having economic and financial resources. So prevention is based on also on the wealth of the individual people, and this is what is mirrored in our data too. 65% is the result of research study that we carried out in our institute, Consumer Life. These are European figures, so Italy, Germany, France, Holland, and you see that 65% of respondents maintain it is important to indulge or pamper pamper oneself on a regular basis, and this is systematically growing because we leading a very fragmented life, a very busy life, and in the past few years, the number of consumers saying they need to switch off for a while growing. So after COVID, war, information bombarding the people, well, people are looking for psychological well-being, for some balance, and psychological well-being is a very important component in this macro trend. In this respect, let me show you a number that I showed you last year too on this stage, because this is part of the study that we carried out for media last year. You see 34% of people see eyewear as a sort of a safe haven. So something which is not just a medical device helping reduce an impairment or a problem, is something that helps one's own self-confidence and allows us to better experience relationships with other people, with peers. Giulia will dwell on that later on. This is another trend which is a hype nowadays, and it's sustainability. Sustainability, well, is the perfect example of an evolution that moves up and down abruptly. It grew at an all-time high during the COVID pandemic. We all realized that we've reached that we had reached a point of no return, and so each one of us has to give his or her own contribution. Now, this thinking has become increasingly widespread. On top of that, we also have some economic implications linked to the COVID pandemic. So, for the first time, economic data were not against environmentally friendly data because we had the Green Deal. So the zeitgeist has changed. Without dwelling on political implications, well, the zeitgeist has changed. We have now a transactional approach. So if we're losing on the one hand, this doesn't mean that we're winning on the other hand. So the zeitgeist has increased sustainability. We also have the shift toward electric engines. It's a challenging topic that has also some economic implications in relation, in connection with the purchasing power. But for consumers, it is a priority, and this is a commitment that companies must take according to the consumers. Let me share a piece of information that you certainly already know, but it has to be properly interpreted, and that's the importance of research studies. It's not true that Gen Z pays more attention to environmentally related topics. The baby boomers are those who pay the greatest attention to sustainability. Sustainability, however, is no longer a premiumness driver. There are people saying, yes, we are ready to pay something more for sustainable products, but we need to add some further elements. For example, health is important. For food, it's quite easy, sustainable food and healthy food at the same time. For other sectors, it may be a bit more difficult. Here you see sustainability as a purchase drivers of eyewear, and you see it's in the middle, 30%, 37%. Look reaches 79%. So that's the order of magnitude. So sustainability per se is not able to shift our decisions in eyewear dramatically. And this means, of course, that we should continue to focus on sustainability because consumers still pay attention to it. As you can see in this slide, we feel guilty when we're not environmentally friendly, and then maybe we cannot because of a series of reasons. However, this triggers a sort of sense of guilt, and so this gap between the two percentages is the potential that brands have in terms of positioning. Brands can say, I'm your ally, I can help you being good from the viewpoint of sustainability. We know that consumers are looking for allies. They feel a bit abandoned or neglected by brands, and so this can be a possible interesting positioning. And then, of course, it's right and fair to be sustainable. I do not want to dwell on the details of that. It's not only environmental sustainability that needs to be guaranteed. We also have social and economic implications for investments in eye care. So this reminds us of the importance of investing in these sectors in order to generate wealth, wealth growth, increase in productivity and skills, education in disadvantaged areas. But this goes beyond the individual brand and the individual interests of companies, so sustainability in a broader sense in the field of eyewear and eye care. But let's go back to lifestyle and consumer trends.
And Giulia will speak about customization. Daniele mentioned a figure, if you've seen it, the look and feel of the product. Let's go back here when we speak all about me, customization, and today we have a wider and wider space in our world connected to individuality and also the experience that we have and the products that we buy tell us something about ourselves. They create an image of the way we feel for ourselves, but also for the others. It's a communications instrument towards the outside world. Individuality is reflected in the way I look. For example, I consume, I have certain types of experience, and this goes hand in hand with the image I create of myself. And this is not just in the world of consumption. It is observed in a host of categories, but it has to do with eye care and eyewear. We have significant figures from 2019-2025. People told us they bought new eyewear each year, and the figure has increased by 2 times. People have a higher purchasing power. They make small purchases in the course of time, and they want to express their individuality also through eyewear. And eyewear becomes functional for vision, but it's also an instrument whereby I express myself, and this figure goes hand in hand with sunglasses and shades. The product goes hand in hand with the experience, and experience is a very important element, and products create experience in the way we use them to communicate with others. And products are communication, interaction, and building of relationships, and it is seen in figures. And eyewear makes us feel well. It's what Daniele said before, and the way you perceive yourself and your relation with the other. Eyewear as a functional but also emotional value. And it is reflected in fragmentation, and Daniele used this word, fragmentation. I want to repropose it. Fragmentation of the moments of our day. Our lives are fuller and fuller, so many activities to pursue. The products we decided to consume should go hand in hand with this lifestyle, fragmentation of occasions and contexts. Context of use is a context of consumption, and we see it in the eyewear sector. This is a wonderful slide. It speaks about the activities that we carry out with optical glasses and activities for which we select another type of product, contact lenses. Activities at home, when I want to read, use a computer, probably I will use eyeglasses, spectacles, and activities that have to do with specific functions and requiring the movement of the body, sports, or going out at night. I opt for a functional choice based on the specific occasion. It's a fundamental driver of my interaction with the product and the experience. And we've heard the word simplification, and the last trend we talk about, last but not least, obviously, we said it, we know it, our lives are more and more complex, and you see it on the right-hand side of the slide. Amongst all the various drivers tested, simplification ranges second, health and well-being first. Simplification, and to simplify our lives, we're willing to pay something more. Another figure that stresses the important, it's not a figure, another element, it's statistical analysis. And here you have a relationship between all the trends identified, well-being, for example, sustainability, but we have many others, and identifying overlapping areas, areas where a trend is strictly connected to another one. What green circles mean strong correlation, sustainability and well-being go hand in hand. It's some sort of mapping, and we cannot read it in detail, but we'll give our presentation to Mito. And you can navigate the map, but that's not the point. The point is that simplification is the only trend that is basically connected to all the other trends, and it can be interpreted as a prerequisite. If a product is not sustainable, it doesn't work, because all the other needs are connected to simplification, and simplification that rhymes with innovation. And we asked what is an innovative product, and they replied, an innovative product improves my quality of life, health and well-being, but second position, simplifies things. It simplifies things. And if we ask people for which product they're willing to pay more, it's the same mapping. Health, well-being, simplification, sustainability is a bit below. It's losing ground. So simplification is more and more important. Why? Because we have more and more complex lives. But not only, we have something else. And perhaps the promise that was betrayed by the digital to really simplify our lives. If we consider this table, it's counterintuitive. Over the course of years, quarter after quarter, the percentage of people saying, I'm able to manage my digital world is reduced. It's counterintuitive. When you learn to ride a bike, you learn to do it. That's it. But we've seen this is a proxy. We have other elements indicating a loss of equity of the digital, because the digital has betrayed the promise of simplification. If you think about it, and perhaps everybody is confronted with so many tasks. Perhaps they're simple, but to justify the absence of your child, you should use the electronic register. It's easy, you simply click. But if it doesn't work, it's a problem, and it's true for us, private citizens, but also for professionals. So many tasks. It's easy. Everything is so easy. The problem is that we should do it all. And also the expectation for simplification grows more and more, because we're supposed to do many things. And in 2025, by no chance, was the year of artificial intelligence. And some trends are obvious. You see here Italian data. But if we want to make a summary, we've gained familiarity with artificial intelligence instruments. We have big expectations. from artificial intelligence in terms of simplification of our relationship with the digital. Mature people are digitalized. We as a brand are in a relationship with consumers through digital media. Also, in the case of mature people, they choose digital instruments, but they're not so competent. A footnote: remember that. You don't just have a 35-year-old people when you devise your strategy, but also people that need a simple strategy. And artificial intelligence is a formidable promise. Then artificial intelligence means also better products, expectations in the medical field are high. And products of eyewear and eye care can avail themselves of artificial intelligence. Here you see some products, for example, AI is reshaping early diagnosis in eye health, telemedicine. If you wear eyeglasses, eyeglasses send data of your vision to the optician, or having eyewear for immersive reality, but also for people that don't see well. They represent some sort of support, and we are assessing to investigate such trends in an ad hoc research. And we've gotten to the last chapter of our storytelling, that is to say, the research design. For the ad hoc report that will end in the next few months, we'd like to remind you that basically the objective that we set was to provide Mido with market intelligence, and but also to all stakeholders of Mido to have an insight and the possibility to define a data-driven strategy for the management of the market evolution, anticipating some future trends. I don't know if we can guide such trends, but for sure helping companies ride them in the best possible way. And last but not least, the theme of education. Can we do something to reduce the impact of aging for people that do not see so well? We can do, but to a certain extent. But old people, but when you have young people, when they don't see well, education can make a difference. So the objective that we set comes from the approach that we have designed and anticipated, a consumer-based approach. We will interview people, and thanks to this, we'll get to know their habits and behaviors, but also elements on the category inside which products work the best and touch points to be used. And even if it's not the final objective of the research, we'll have some elements helping us in the storytelling touch points that work for which targets. We'll have a set of information that we'll collect systematically in various countries for the targets that we're interested in, and in a more specific way than what we've done this morning. We have made a query for our database, and we have defined the state of the art in general terms. Basically and pragmatically, the research will be based on a sizing phase, gauging the various diseases, and then an in-depth analysis of problems interviewing adults, but also through adults getting to know the condition of children whose story will be reconstructed by adults. We'll start in Italy, and then we may add Germany, France, and Spain, and we'll get to an overall picture, specifically just the words on the research path, and how will we interview such people through web-based interviews. We'll select samples and we'll activate such samples, and in the first module, sizing, the objective, just like we told you, will be to size the various problems, disorders, and to do this, you simply need a short questionnaire, but for a representative sample, to know how many people have a problem. I should also interview everybody, not just those that have that problem, and see how many people suffer from that problem sizing phase. Then we need to investigate specifically and have wide samples by sub-target of interest. It will be done in the second module, just focusing on people with those problems connected to vision. And that's basically the design. And overall, more than 11,000 interviews. That's we don't go back to the objectives and what we might analyze and share. I'd like to just stress the last bullet point in a different color. We're still thinking about it, how to cover it. We are in a phase of definition of research instruments and an open reflection on how to map and consider the potential of some IA innovation instruments. But overall, we can make a summary by saying let's try and be equipped to navigate the future. And the future is continuously changing. We are through with this. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to Mido for choosing us as a research partner. We're available if you have questions about the presentation, or if a brand you need a specific follow-up on your specific needs, you can contact us, or through Mido, you can reach us. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
In a dark situation.